for you here. You had said earlier that this mono red was a pretty good place to be, or like these aggressive decks, right?
Absolutely. Although it should be noted that that is kind of somewhat predicated on a Burning Earth Thundermaw Hellkite package. This particular mono red does not feature Burning Earth or Thundermaw Hellkite anywhere in the 75.
No, this is more of the Burning Tree Emissary style deck.
Yeah, this is the very, very, very all-in approach.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll see how all-in is. Haring has won the dial, which is pretty important in this matchup. It starts out on Rakdos Cackler.
Absolutely.
And following that up with Young Pyromancer, and he hits for 2. He does play Mutavault there. In his deck, he's running 4 Mutavaults. Probably, does that hurt your Burning Tree Emissaries? You know,
well, I mean, it certainly reduces the percentage chance, but the extra threats are. I mean, Mutavault is just fantastic.
Yeah.
Just a very, very strong card, and the only card it really interacts poorly with in the entire deck is the Burning Tree Emissary. He doesn't even have Ash Zealot to get punished.
All right, so we see a Scavenging Ooze made by Huey Jensen, and a swing by Chandra's Phoenix in with haste. Haring has his team attacking.
So what do you think? Does the Scavenging Ooze block the Cackler or the Pyromancer? I mean, the
Pyromancer, right?
That's the first choice, but
okay.
The thing is, what if you have Tragic Slit? I mean, maybe...
All right.
It depends on your hand, right? If you have Bonfire and you're just going to Bonfire for 1, maybe you block the Cackler.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I could totally see... Right. So,
yeah, okay. Yeah. All right, he's blocking the Cackler.
Yeah, William Jensen definitely... it's tough because that's one of those plays where you like on gut, you want to take the Pyromancer because you know just it's so much more powerful of a card it is. But Huey, like, what if he drew a Bonfire for 1?
Right.
And he may just have the Bonfire in his hand and just be planning on Bonfire for 1 on his own turn, but definitely smart play. And
that looks like it.
Looks like that's the play.
Yeah.
Smart play by William Jensen. Hall of Fame elect, obviously. Trying to do anything he can to buy himself a little bit of time to live long enough to drop that Thrag Tusk.
So second Mutavault for Sean Haring, and he's swinging Mutavault and Chandra's Phoenix, putting William Jensen down to 10. He has no follow-up play on 2 mountains. I believe he'd drawn a Pillar of Flame for the turn. I think has a fair number of mountains in his hand right now.
He does have those 2 Mutavaults in the Chandra's Phoenix, though, so he has a little bit of a board presence.
Right.
What do you think? Does he just swing with the team here and then Pillar of Flame to get back? Well, he won't be able to get it back because surely the Olivia will eat in a Mutavault and not the Chandra's Phoenix. But
yeah, I mean, you have to keep pushing damage, right? If the alternative is to not attack, which that seems pretty bad. He's gonna go ahead with Hellrider.
Yeah.
Hellrider and Chandra's Phoenix swing. This will almost certainly get the Hellrider to trade with Olivia.
Yep. If he actually tries to eat the Chandra's Phoenix, he could get punished severely because the Pillar of Flame can... Well, not punished, I guess. He doesn't...
Okay, he's going to go for that.
Yeah, so the Pillar of Flame does kill the Olivia here.
Now, is he going to kill the Olivia? He's going at Huey with it. He's going to get the Chandra's Phoenix back. That puts Huey down to 3. And actually, well, he has Hellrider Mutavault. That's actually lethal right now. Huey does have a Thrag Tusk, so he has a little bit of a reprieve. But still, he's at a very low life total.
Yeah, and this is to say nothing if Huey has to play a land untapped.
Looking for a partner for the two-headed giant event. So
mono red is not what you want to face if you're a Jund player.
No. So we see he has a Blood Crypt in hand. I think, yep, he's going to have to shock and go to 1 to cast it, to cast this Thrag Tusk, and that'll put him up to 6. You know, tapped out. He's going to see whether or not Haring can get that final point in. I believe right now it seems like Haring is 1 damage point short. If he makes the Chandra's Phoenix, if he makes Phoenix, he can swing with 1 Mutavault, or he's 1 mana short.
Yeah, he has both a mana and a damage. Because if he attacks with 1 Mutavault, he does 1 damage. He does 3 damage from Hellrider, putting Huey to 3, and then 1/2/2 gets unblocked, putting him to 1.
Right, to 1. So he has that option. He also would have the option of doing nothing and then next turn swinging everything.
Yeah, but I think he knows that Olivia can just take over. I think he wants to get Huey down low enough that any burn spell will kill him.
Yeah.
Because even with this board, you know, Huey at 1 life. I mean,
yep. The 2 off the unblocked Mutavault puts Huey down to 1.
Huey does have control over the board. If Haring doesn't draw a burn spell, William Jensen will win in about maybe 3 turns.
Right. So right now Huey with no more presence in his hand. Looks like he has more lands. Yeah. Scavenging Ooze. So Huey's trying to draw to a Scavenging Ooze, a Hunt Master, a Thrag Tusk.
Anything to gain some life.
Right. You can tell he's knows just how many top decks are
he's
tougher,
under the gun,
tough
so
for him.
He has to both make sure he's playing around anything, like perhaps like what can I play around, and how fast of a clock can I present, because every turn is Russian roulette.
Yeah, to be fair, there are not that many burn spells. Sean Haring is much more of a red deck wins style deck. He's, when you look at his cards, he has Fire Fist Striker, Lightning Mauler, Burning Tree Emissary, Rakdos Cackler. Really a lot of these cards that don't win the game for him right now.
So Lightning Mauler, Chandra's Phoenix, Hell Rider, Pillar of Flame, Searing Spear, and possibly if he has Zealous Conscript or Skullcrack. And I think it's very reasonable to think he might have access to those to deal with Thragtusk.
A huge play from Huey is he did have the Scavenging Ooze after the swing. Lightning Mauler drawn for Sean Haring, but this Ooze is really good for Huey on the board.
There's that Lightning Mauler we talked about. Now, Olivia can shoot it.
Yeah, so with the Olivia shoot, I don't think... It doesn't look like Sean has any attacks.
Now, this does force... oh, so he does have the attacks.
Okay. They both block. Both Mutavaults are down. The Chandra's Phoenix gets exiled. Huey goes up to 2. Does Sean have a pillar?
Not sure about that attack.
No, he does not have the pillar. Okay, so I think now with all this untapped green...
Maybe he was just hoping that Huey wouldn't see the pumping the Scavenging Ooze. And maybe he's just like, okay. My only hope.
Even if and then if Huey doesn't have the Ooze, then I guess he can draw a pillar to kill him.
Yeah. I think I still rather have the Mutavaults just because it forces Huey to play slightly more conservative. Like he's...
Yeah.
But either way, Scavenging Ooze
getting 4 times.
Crazy busy, and the game slipping quickly out of hand.
Yep.
Excellent play by Huey. That was
main phase there.
Well, no, just early on by blocking the Rakdos Cackler instead of the Pyromancer.
Yeah.
He prevented more than 1 point of damage as a result of that line, and as we saw, he dropped as low as 1. If he had taken even 1 extra damage, he would have lost the match.
All right. So William Jensen up 1-0 on Sean Haring right now. As we can see, just the power of mono red in this matchup. It's really it's a scary matchup, but one that he can navigate.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to get worse after boarding, though, once you have the burning earth. Huey doesn't know that Sean doesn't have the burning earths, though.
Right, so he will probably, in anticipation of burning earth, board in Golgari Charms, which still won't even be that bad in this matchup. There are Stromkirk Nobles, there are Young Pyromancers, there are Fire Fist Strikers, there are Lightning Maulers, still be a great card.
Absolutely.
On Sean's side, so if he's not using Burning Earth in this game plan, how is he going to attack the Jund deck?
So I don't know if you even want Zealous Conscript, just because it's a little bit slow and he has only 21 land. I think it's more likely he either changes absolutely nothing, or it's possible he puts some Volcanic Strengths in. You don't love having Volcanic Strength against a deck full of Doomblades. However, if you don't play the Volcanic Strength early, if you can, soak up the burn spells, it can be nice to punch through when they have a Thragtusk that's holding on defense.
Yeah.
Being able to put your Volcanic Strength on a creature then, and suddenly you have a very real threat.
I think a timely Volcanic Strength, say if we'd seen one game 1 there, a Volcanic Strength probably would have been able to find that extra point of damage.
Yeah, but of course, I mean, we were at a spot where Huey's at 1 life and Haring has a couple land in his hand.
Right.
If his land had been any business at all, I think he gets there. But as AJ Soccer would say, it is a game of inches. So even having 1 threat too few can be costly.
So you say this traditionally gets better for mono red post board, but because Sean has not opted to play Burning Earths, does this get better than for Jund post board?
So the Jund player, Huey's bringing in 2 Golgari Charms, 2 Pillar of Flames, a Tragic Slip, which isn't a ton, but they are nice, cheap early plays, which is exactly what he wants. He doesn't have a ton of bad cards to board out, though, so it's not like he's getting huge upgrades. I don't know. I don't love the. I don't think that the Jund deck is actually gaining very much, but I think that
neither's the mono red deck.
Yeah, I think that traditionally the reason this is such a bad. I mean, it's a pretty rough matchup anyway, but Burning Earth is what really puts it away. I think that without Burning Earth, I think I still like Haring's side of it, but I like Huey's side of it, considering he's up 1 game and one of the 20 best players of all time.
All right. So for this one, Sean will get to be on the play again. He as we saw, he had a pretty close to one of his better starts last game, I would say.
Sean Haring?
Yeah, definitely that his deck can produce. He had Cackler into Pyromancer into Phoenix, I believe.
Yeah, definitely a good curve. I think anything without a Burning Tree Emissary, it's hard to really consider it to be. Like, there's basically just
draw.
two. Yeah. But a good mana curve is about all you can ask for, And like that game, he basically had the tools. He just ended up 1 life point short, and it makes you wonder. Like, we didn't see his hand the whole time. Is there some way he could have rearranged it? I know that. That Patrick Sullivan has always said that whenever you're playing mono red, and maybe it was Dan Paskin, but whenever you're playing mono red, if you get your opponent to 1 life, there's probably a way you could have done the other point,
Yeah.
And that
certainly happened last game.
Huey definitely could have punted it, Like, it's a tough line of play. Sometimes it's tough both being the red player, and sometimes it's tough playing against them. Just because you got to figure out how aggressive can I be, but I actually do have to be kind of aggressive because they get into the spot where they have so many cards that just kill me immediately.
Yeah.
Scavenging Ooze putting in some serious work. Not even just for the gaining life, but
just like it's a grizzly bear. The fact that he had it's a kill spell.
And it turned into a 7/7 threat, 8/8 threat.
Yeah. So it was like the first one was a grizzly bear that traded, and then the second one. Not only was it an 8/8, but it gained him 5 life, which is just as important.
Absolutely. So William Jensen on the mold of 6, deciding to handicap himself a little bit for this match. What's he looking to see in his opening hand? Just a good mix of mana.
I would say 1 and 2 mana spells, and maybe a Thragtusk or a Huntmaster.
1 big card. A couple of cheap removal cards and plenty of land.
Yeah.
For Two-Headed Giant.
See that?
Once again,
I think, and I've said this before when talking about these Burning Tree Emissary decks, the challenge is that to play spells as fast as the mono red deck is playing them, or close to as fast. If if their spell count gets up on you by more than 2, usually then you're in trouble, because they're playing 1 to 2 spells every turn for the first few turns.
Absolutely. What do you think about these Mind Sparkers in the sideboard?
Yeah, so that's another thing. It's one of the.
It's not for this matchup.
Not for this matchup.
But as an alternative, like most mono red decks would play Burning Earth against blue, white, red control.
Yeah. Mind Sparker. It's really a commitment to the red deck wins philosophy, where it's like he wants to be playing creatures. If one of your opponent plays a blue or white instant or sorcery, I believe.
Yep. So here we see Huey deciding to keep his 5. Definitely.
Yeah.
A little bit rocky. It looks like he's got mostly just land. But
turn 1 he shocks for Blood Crypt. That represents what's likely a tragic slip.
And it is.
Alright, so Sean swings at Stormcrook Noble, gets no damage across. He's gonna make Rakdos Cackler. And Stormcrook Noble. So he has the triple 1-drop start.
Gotta be careful you don't get Rumblebolt Melked.
Yeah. I thought that is an option here. Hugh was playing that presumably in case Sean decided he wanted to put a Volcanic Strength on his 1-drop.
Yep.
And Huey shocks again, kind of doing Sean's work for him, this time for a Stomping Ground.
Are we going to see an Abrupt Decay or a Doomblade?
Look at this start for Haring. So 1-drop into double 1-drop into Burning Tree Emissary Lightning Mauler.
Oof.
We see a brutal Golgari Charm from.
But Sean has 2 creatures that live through it. So it could have been a lot worse.
Right. Still though, a pretty good pair of, I think, pretty good answers for Sean's. For what is, by all accounts, a pretty good draw for Sean.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be if you're going to be facing a very fast Burning Tree Emissary draw, well, you're on the draw with having to shock yourself twice while you're playing with just 5 cards because of a double mulligan.
Yeah.
You could do a lot worse.
So off the top, Sean draws a Chandra's Phoenix. So instead of activating the Mutavault, he swings across with the freshly cast Chandra's Phoenix, Burning Tree Emissary, and Cackler, dealing 6. Huey drops to 8, and now we'll recover to 10 with a Huntmaster of the Fells.
Yeah, and does he have a Scavenging Ooze in his hand? Because that's actually, like, he's got a reasonable amount of counter. Oh.
And
what
the Hell Rider
Hell
sets
Rider?
in there. So Hell Rider is now the play for Sean. He knocks Huey down to 7 just on the attack. Will be at least for 4 more after blocks. And his back is really up against the wall here.
So he could double block the Hell Rider, keep his wolf, be at 1, and need to produce 3 answers. Or he could block the two 2/2s, and then he's at 2, and he doesn't have any creatures. He still needs 3 answers. Yeah, so I think he has to double block the Hell Rider.
Right. Because the other ways he goes to 2 with a Hell Rider in play and another attacker, so that's 2 on the attack step.
He needs the Thrag Tusk, because like even Scavenging Ooze, even Scavenging Ooze isn't enough.
So he drops the 1. He has another land. It's a Blood Crypt though, so that's not going to be something he can play untapped. He plays Scavenging Ooze, land into play tapped. That right now means he's not dead on board. Well, he is with the Mutavault activation.
Right, like isn't he just right? So,
but his opponent has to see it.
Yeah.
And he does. Mutavault gets activated. This should be a lethal swing.
Accident, and they go to game 3.
Well, I think pretty well fought there. For a 5-card hand, you know, we saw a removal spell for the turn 1 play. We saw a Golgari Charm 2-for-1, what was an incredible draw from start from Sean. And he made a game of it, but in the end, I think just got overwhelmed.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on the draw and you have to play 2 Shocklands untapped, and you're on a Mold of 5, and your opponent has Burning Tree Emissary, including multiple, and a perfect curve, you're going to be in real rough shape anyway. He gave it a fight, you know.
Yeah.
He definitely gave it a good fight, but he just didn't have enough tools to work with. However, in game 3, getting to go first, very important.
Pretty big. I mean,
it's like imagine if those 2 if he had gone first in that game, his 2 Shocklands had both come into play tapped.
So that's 4 life already.
Yeah, absolutely, which can make a world of difference when you're just trying to buy yourself enough time to drop, some Huntmaster, Scavenging Ooze, Thrag Tusk types.
Well, I think more importantly, so say he's at 4 more life, then he probably doesn't have to immediately chump with that Huntmaster spells. Maybe he gets enough time to flip it, and maybe the game turns completely different.
Yeah, definitely makes all the difference. So going into game 3, in what's already proving to be a lightning fast match.
Right.
On the side events pairings board by the feature match area, your seedings and pairings will be on.
We've got not a lot of surprises out of William Jensen's deck. Very traditional, Duke-ish Jund.
Right, and he even wrote that this is Reed Duke's build of Jund that he's playing on his list. So, like we saw out of the board, he is using Golgari Charms, and the extra Tragic Slip, but otherwise, still mostly staying to form is just, removal spell, play a threat.
Absolutely. Let's see what kind of a game that Huey can do with 7 cards if he ends up staying. Because sometimes if you're gonna trade a couple cards,
Yeah.
you run out of gas much faster with only 5.
Only 5. Yeah, especially because that's Jund's game plan in this matchup. That mulligan can be really difficult for him.
Yep. But Huey, he's definitely one who knows how it goes, and he's been the beneficiary just as often as the on the other side of it.
All right, so both pairs.
How many opens
for
is
game
this
3
for Huey this season so far?
I'm not sure. I know he was.
Can we get a ruling? How many opens has Huey been in so far this season?
Well, just 2 weeks ago, he made
awesome.
the finals of the largest open we'd ever had. It was about 960 players in New Jersey.
And the team tournament they won just before the Pro Tour, like 2 weeks before the Pro Tour.
Right.
Him, Owen Turtenwald, and Reed Duke, the 3 amigos.
So we see a Blood Crypt tapped into a Woodland Cemetery for Huey, presumably representing some sort of kill spell here. And yep, it's a Tragic Slip, not main
Inside
phase,
the
so.
attack step.
Inside the attack step.
Huey playing around the Rumblebolt Malka.
Yep.
I love it.
And we see Young Pyromancer from Haring. Interesting is that Huey has Farseek in his hand, but just didn't cast it turn 2 because of how important the removal spells are.
Well, and you have to kill the noble before it grows.
Right. So one of the questions is how good is Farseek a lot worse in this matchup because of that? Because you just don't get the chance to turn 2 it.
I mean, you still need to. It's part of your mana base. You got to get up to have enough mana to cast Thrag Tusk and so on.
So it's like because you don't have lands to board in, you can't really board out Farseeks.
Yeah, and if you don't have anything else to do, it's a fine play.
Sure. So we see a Putrefied take care of Young Pyromancer. Sean Haring replaces it with a Stromkirk Noble, but no 3rd land. And right now, Huey is still at 20, as now he takes the time to cast Farseek, leaving open a Blood Crypt.
And what's interesting is that he is not Mizzy Mortaring the Noble.
Right.
So he is taking a damage. The theory being, first, now he's 1 turn closer to Mortars, but more importantly, and he's presumably setting up to try to mortars to get card advantage. But more importantly, he goes and finds his basic swamp out of respect for Burning Earth.
Right. He so he has in his hand an Olivia Voldaren, a Doomblade, and a Mortars. He does rather than Doomblading, he does let himself go to 19 off the Stormkirk Noble. Haring had drawn Lightning Mauler for the turn, opted not to play it. Instead, he just went with another Stormkirk Noble. So,
yeah, I think if he had played the Lightning Mauler, his original Noble would have got Doombladed.
I would agree. But Haring's still stuck on 2 lands, and we're going to see Huey casts a Scavenging Ooze, this time with 2 green mana up.
This is real big. I think this is going to be all she wrote.
Yeah, and that's he eats 1 creature, moving it up to a 3/3, and he's going to go ahead and do the second one. Scavenging Ooze becomes a 4/4, and Huey actually above 20 life.
Not only is he above his starting life total, he's got a giant 4/4 body without the creature type human. Scavenging Ooze completely dominating.
And Haring opts to go for Volcanic Strength on that Stormkirk Noble to swing it in for 4 damage, moving up to a 5/5. He chooses that over a Amizium Mortars that he had available.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you got to Mortars the Ooze right there.
Well, you can.
I think things are going to get worse for you.
Yeah, now Huey has the option to Doomblade a creature and Doomblade and eat it if Sean tries to cast the Mortars.
Yep.
He says that's only a 2. It's a 3/3, but it only has 2 1/1 counters.
Yep. And it wasn't that he forgot the trigger. He just does not get the trigger twice.
Yeah. I think he was thinking, oh, it's a 3/3. I need to turn this die on to a 3.
Yeah. So here we see Doomblade, and now quickly eating.
All right, and now that Ooze is out of Amizium Mortars range.
Yep. I think, wow.
That's huge.
So, and the tough thing is you can't, like if he attacks and it eats the Noble, you can't Mortars after combat either because he's got the mana to be able to pump
eat it again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tight play by Huey, but I think he has secured the game.
Well, Haring still has a fistful of cards. If he can draw a couple lands, depending on what they are, they might be able to do some damage.
Yeah, I just don't think he's gonna. Yeah, and this is Olivia.
This Olivia.
I think the Scavenging Ooze, you needed to Mortars that.
To be fair, now he does get a chance to Mortars the Olivia before it turns into a 5/5.
Absolutely.
Which, I would, the Ooze is a problem, but this is a good consolation prize, if you can even want to call it that.
Yeah, but to be fair, I don't think it's fair to call Olivia fair.
Right.
Amizium Mortars ending that particular threat, still facing down a 5/5 Scavenging Ooze that's about to gain some more life, grow even more, and probably be just too much to handle. Does he have any answers?
Yeah, I was about to ask you the same thing. He can Zealous Conscript sit for a turn.
He's not even close for that to be a plan.
All right, and Ooze is going to go ahead and eat the Olivia. Now it's all the way up to a 6/6. No, I think his plan's going to have to be like chump blocking.
Man, yeah. And Mono Red is not the greatest chump blocking deck. Maybe he's on Chandra's Phoenix to chump block. Because if you play another land, you can be like Chandra's Phoenix and then block and then burn, you get it back, play it, burn, you get it back.
Except Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah.
So you can't even get it back.
You gotta play to your outs.
So part of that is that Huey doesn't see that he can eat the Chandra's Phoenix.
Yeah, the Scavenging Ooze that has eaten every other creature.
He'll just forget about that one.
I think Huey has earned himself another W.
Well, we will see. All right, so Sean finally up to his 4th land. He has hit lands this turn and last turn, but he is down an 8 life point deficit. It looks like he's going to go for a Hell Rider here. And he is.
Gotta do something.
And he's just going to swing the Cackler.
Presumably because the Cackler can't block. It for sure has to attack.
So he wants to chump block here,
right.
Yeah.
He's sending a signal that he is willing to chump block.
Yeah, even with Hell Rider. I feel like when you're casting Hell Rider on chump blocks, that your game plan. I mean, what is your plan at that point? And we see
Mortars kicked. Mortars is going to be.
Yep.
Knocking Haring to 1 with Huey at 17.
Yep. Didn't have the mana to make it lethal this turn, but Haring will have to have a chump blocker every turn from here on out. And we know Huey I think he has another Tragic Slip in his hand.
So we have 2 Maulers, presumably one will attack, the other won't, and then Huey's Tragic Slip will end this particular match.
And he's going to draw the pillar off the top. He points the pillar at the creature, not...
Yeah, but tapped out against Mono Red and Standard is probably a safe
yeah,
bet.
Probably safe. All right. So 2 games to 1. William Jensen defeats John Haring. That moves him up